Good evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter, Minnesota. It is Monday, November 24th, 2025. At 7:02 p.m., we are called to order. Would all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody has received a copy of the agenda. Are there any revisions or corrections to the agenda as distributed? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes. We've all got the packet with a copy of the minutes. Are there any revisions or corrections to the minutes as distributed? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Next up, we have two public hearings. The first public hearing is on proposed assessment of non-right-of-way projects and miscellaneous charges. As provided for in state statute, a public hearing has been scheduled at this time to consider public comments related to the proposed assessment for non-right-of-way projects and miscellaneous charges. Notice of the hearing has been duly published in the St. Peter Herald, and affected property owners have been notified. Action to consider the assessments is scheduled under new business, and the instructions for a public hearing are printed on page 11 of the packet, and Perry is here to provide the staff report.
So you'll see in the memo from later in the agenda, this is a public hearing. This first one is related to miscellaneous charges that are for services conducted throughout the year. In addition to, in this case, only one particular that's in relation to a waiver that was signed for some stormwater work that was done. So at this time, we can hear from the public, anyone on that roll of miscellaneous charges, if they would like to make comments at this point.
All right, thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on the proposed assessment of non-right-of-way projects and miscellaneous charges? All right, hearing none, we will close the public hearing at 7:04. And we will open our next public hearing at 7:04. And this public hearing is on proposed assessments for unpaid utility accounts.
If I could,
Sure.
Madam Mayor, my error, has a part of that right away, the council or city staff received two pieces of correspondence, if I may.
Oh, sure,
I am
sure.
so
That's
sorry.
quite all right.
We received two pieces of correspondence. Typically, we might read through them all, but in this instance, I'll let you know that these are documents that we keep on file, so the general public can certainly see them. We have one document from Stacy Menke, who's contesting the assessment for work in the right-of-way, and we have a second one from Hunt Plumbing and Drain contesting their charge for snow removal. Both parties mentioned various factors, including timeliness of snow, timeliness of letter, whether it makes sense to provide or use taxpayers' dollars to provide for this type of service. When sidewalks are maintained or not maintained appropriately. And I should have read that in earlier. I apologize for that, Madam Mayor.
No problem. And just for the public to confirm, we did not read these in full, but every council member has received a copy of
And
these.
we do keep them on file, so they are available for the public.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
What's the date of this letter? Was it received recently?
One was received on November 20th, and one was hand-delivered to my office on Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, now we will really close this public hearing at 7:06. We'll open the public hearing on proposed assessments for unpaid utility at 7:06. Same things apply. There was notice was published.
Utilities through May 31st of the previous year, and then these move over onto the utility bills of the property owner, and then it gets assessed to the property, the amount of the bills that can be assessed to it.
Okay. Anything to add, Todd?
Madam Mayor, I think it's important to note that we do have one that's on this list that we believe we've received bankruptcy notice on, and just as a clarification for the process for the council and anyone from the public that's paying attention, the council has adopted previous policy related to this relative to bankruptcy, death, and amounts under $10. It's also a fact that as we provide notice, that folks have the ability to come into the finance department and pay this amount before the end of the year, and then it is not sent to the county as an assessment to their property taxes. The one that we believe is under bankruptcy, and we believe that we've received a notice on, we want to confirm the name, is about 10th down on your list, and it's property ID number 19.020.0900. And again, this can certainly stay on this resolution. If it's confirmed that it's bankruptcy, then at that time, before the final roll is sent to the county auditor treasurer's office, it would be removed, as well as any of those that meet those policy requirements that the council has previously approved.
Yeah, and so compared to this list, obviously there's a time lag that happens. 5 or 10 on 5 on one and about 7 on the other of these two lists have already been paid. And so there's a little bit of lag there. And then we allow them to pay up until the 30th of December, which is what's in the resolution. And at that point, that's when I send it over to Jackie at the county to go through the regular assessment project process and then be added to the property tax roll. So again, these people have the opportunity to pay this if they don't want it to roll over onto their property tax bill up until the 30th of December.
All right, thank you. We will have time as an action item, so if there's any discussion,
Yeah.
we'll do that at the action item portion of the meeting. Is there any member of the public who'd like to make comment on this hearing on proposed assessments for unpaid utility accounts? Okay. Hearing none, we will close this public hearing at 7:09. Now we will move on to the visitor comment portion of our meeting. We have time for visitors who'd like to comment on agenda items. Is there a visitor who'd like to address the council on an agenda item? Hearing none, we also have time for general visitor comments. Is there a member of the audience who'd like to address the council on a matter that's not on the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Consent agenda items appear on pages 11 through 54 of the packet and conclude with a resolution that appears on page 55. The consent agenda includes one license previously approved. The date has been corrected now. That's to the Church of St. Peter for March 6th, 2026. We have one appointment, Joe Harmon as a volleyball official for the wage listed within the packet. The following purchases: an AV systems for council chambers, a Bobcat skid steer loader, and a utility vehicle. The vendors' prices and funding source are all listed within the packet, as well as the schedule of disbursements for November 6th through 20th, 2025. Is there any discussion of any items on the consent agenda? Brad?
Pete, I wonder if you could come up to answer some questions on the Kubota purchasing. So people know, Pete and I have had discussions along with Public Works about the replacing of EVs with internal combustion engines. I'm not going to dispute this purchase, but I am going to ask, or point out that this is the second issue that essentially we've gone in reverse on as far as sustainability issues. And a concern I have is one of the things you point out that we're working on in the sustainability efforts is the electric chainsaws, weed whips, and leaf blowers. You got those with a grant, correct? Correct. And have you actually purchased anything out of pocket, any electric power tools like that since then?
Off the top of my head.
I guess the thing I've brought up in the past is besides actually them being better for the environment is from a health and safety perspective, the electric equipment is safer. I mean, you don't have the exhaust fumes, you don't have a combustible engine, you don't have the noise issues. I guess I would like to see Public Works take a more proactive approach towards sustainability. Understanding such as things as with the Polaris, with the Rangers, with those vehicles, yeah, there's a significant cost difference. But looking at other things such as converting over, discontinuing the use of internal combustion engines for your weed whackers and your small power tools, and looking at potentially adding an electric vehicle to your fleet, like a pickup truck or something like that. Right now, we're going in reverse, and that's no pun intended on the fact that we're buying. It really wasn't. And we've had a similar issue with Scholarship America and the new construction there. I think we need to actually take a step back. If individuals on the city council have talked about climate change being something of importance, are we actually making progress on a lot of the things we're doing when the decisions are coming down, we're actually, in this case, for example, going backwards on an EV. What are we doing to make up for it? Right now, there's nothing to make up for it. So that's, I guess, and that's not just for public works, that's for other staff as well, is what are we doing from a greenhouse gas perspective? Are we actually making progress, and can we be better? Instead of waiting for direction from the council to build a solar array, what can we do from our tools? What can we do from our vehicle fleet? There's a whole world of things we can do, and I'd just like staff to actually take a more proactive approach in that. So thank you.
If I may.
Yep.
Decisions like this come through a process that the council's involved in many areas. One of the things, based on the communication that you've provided to us, based on discussion at committee meetings and other activities that you're under, has been that as a part of the budget process as we come forward, we will try and identify opportunities for costs and benefits relative to these changes. That way, hopefully, the council has a more informed opportunity related to whether we're comparing Kubota RTV X2C gas versus whatever electric vehicle. And so we will work hard to do a better job with that. I do think there are many areas where you've done well, but there are some areas where we can continue to improve, and we'll try to do that and provide that opportunity as we continue to move through the budget process. And I hope that will feel better, work better for you. That's our goal. Yeah. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Peter. Any other discussion of items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. We have no items of unfinished business tonight, so we will move on to new business. Our first item of new business is assessment for unpaid miscellaneous charges. The memo for that appears on pages 56 through 57 of the packet.
Mayor members, Perry is here if you have any other additional questions. This relates to the first hearing that you had as a part of your evening. Again, this is for work miscellaneous charges, and you'll see the reflection of those located on page 57 and what they're for. Perry, I don't know if you have anything to add other than you put this together, we send the notices, we follow the state statute.
Yeah, I mean, some of this is, it's the goal of council and I think of our entire community to make sure that we keep our sidewalks safe, we keep properties looking proper so that they're there. Some of these are, things that happen as life events happen to property owners where there's a break in a chain of ownership because of, a fatality in a family, or particularly here, you'll notice if you look at the dates on snow removal, this is a very late snowfall this past winter. And so sometimes I think people were just, not in the right place. This is a longer list than you normally see in the past, but we still have to keep our sidewalks safe and we want to keep our community looking right. And so these things, tend to happen, and maybe as we look at this list, and now we have a new communications and sustainability person, we could try to head these things off at the past and do a better job that we don't have to provide these services for people if they're being a little more diligent or they understand what's coming. So this is a longer list again than you've seen in the past. We do just have the one waiver on it, but the rest are these services that we provide to the community based on our ordinances that we have in place.
Anything to add?
The only
Or-
thing I'd mention is that the interest rate is set based on your assessment policy.
Are
And
there,
and I'll add to that's actually a very good interest rate because it's based on what we just got on our bond issue for the new city hall.
any questions for Perry or for Todd? Dustin?
Not a question, just a comment on it. I am sympathetic with with the people who did reach out to us,
Yeah.
frustrated about it. I myself got hit with a bill 4 years ago, right after getting on the council, when mine was the only address on my house was the only one that had any snow removal done on the block, but someone happened to complain about my address, so I got hit with a bill. I would like us as a council to not only revisit this and how it's enforced, also how we're enforcing our law and ordinance and how people are getting cited.
Well, that leads to, I guess I had a question about whether or not enforcements are happening based on a complaint basis, or is it staff making observations, generally speaking? Or maybe it's a combination
I'll
of both.
defer to Pete.
When it comes to lawns and sidewalks, it's basically a complaint driven. We don't go out and look for problems or try to implement work for our staff because it looks like we should be doing something there. We kind of let the people kind of decide whether we should be doing some of those activities. Now, if they go for a complaint, like say at Dustin's house, but the next yard looks the same, we will do that as well. And so we're in the area, and a lot of these areas that we get complaints are on major walkways where kids are going to school. A parent may see that and call in, or whoever it is that calls and complains. It might be frustrating for them if they have mobility issues or can't get someplace. Related to yards or lawns, again, we go through the process. We have Liliana, who does a lot of that investigation first and kind of makes that decision based on what other people see of that, and she makes a determination, and then crews go to work.
I have one follow-up question too, based on one of the letters we received. How long does it usually take for a resident to receive notice that they've got, that snow was removed, or they probably noticed, but maybe not always?
Yep, usually it's within a month.
Okay.
You know, we have a couple-week period there. Now, this year, we did have a snafu in the delivery of the mail.
Oh,
We had some issues with how that got to them. It got there late, and by then, most people, you know, it happened in March, where a lot of these came through. And by the time they got their letters, it was spring, and we'd forgot about snow by then, except for the invoices that were out there.
sure. Okay. Carrie, oh, sorry. Todd, do you have something to add? Okay, Carrie.
The dates, so it looks like it was, mid-March, the 13th and 14th. One of the letters references February snow event. Are the dates of the actual snow removal or of when the letter is sent out?
Probably when the invoice went out.
When the invoice went out?
Yeah.
So then that might not necessarily be the date that the actual snow was removed. I'm just trying to connect what's in this letter about
Yep.
snow accumulation with the dates here.
Sure.
But we don't know the date necessarily.
No, I believe what you see within your packet for the dates are the dates when snow removal or lawn mowing was completed, took place. The information related to when people received notice, the notices were mailed, and some people did not receive notice for whatever reason with the Postal Service. I don't have a rationale for that part of it. I think it's important to note as the council reviews this, and the council can certainly review any of these rules at any time that you would like. However, you do have a number of folks here related to snow removal and lawn mowing. You have a lot of other folks who did keep track of this or who did make it happen as well. So the council's always in a tough spot when you're looking at these types of assessments to find that balance within the community that's appropriate or not
Right.
appropriate.
And it's not that we have visited this not that long ago. And when you think of the purpose of what the policy is, it is for safety and it is for accessibility. Just going around, as I walk in the winter blocks around my work, It is really frustrating. I understand right when a snow falls that you're not going to have time to get out there, but when it's been days, it is frustrating for people walking, for people pushing a stroller, for people with limited mobility. We have the policy for a reason. I understand it. It does not feel good to get a fine. And it doesn't feel good for us to hear people upset about that. And I understand that, but the policy is there for a reason. And we can revisit how we're communicating with the community about that, but I would say, we have a communications person now. Let's let them do their job this upcoming season to spread the word about what the rules are. But I don't know that I'd want to spend a great deal of time on this. We've talked about this.
Additional questions or discussion?
I think I would like to probably revisit this again and see if we have some different opinions. I think it may not make sense for us to be charging estates when people have passed away to be taking care of their lawn. I think there's room in our budget for that level of leniency in certain circumstances. So I do think this would be worth revisiting at some point here.
I will note that's been an estate for a long time, so it might be that just that the house is in the name of, because we've had this one for many years.
With some of these, we only have the data that we have. We can't speak to what the family might be doing or other folks are doing relative to that. But we are certainly always open to that type of correspondence. Oftentimes, these types of notices languish for a long time on a desk or someplace else, so until we get to this point.
I'll add that, obviously I'm very new to this, and it's something that I would like to see my side of things, make sure that I know exactly how to answer these questions about when was this work done, when what happens notice-wise and these events. And I'll strive for, as we go through this process in the future, and then also revisit it as you've requested, to make sure we have good data on exactly when these things are happening. And we're building a better and better, way of communicating with Pete's shop on how to do this and where things are happening. So I'll consider all that as we move forward. So I appreciate the feedback.
Kind of just to piggyback on that, knowing exactly when it took place, going back and looking at historic weather during that time in St. Peter, it was like 74 degrees. We had a hot March. So if somebody got 1/10 of an inch of snow on Wednesday and they saw it was going to be 74 degrees on Thursday, it's going to melt. You know what I mean? So that might have been the thought of some of the people too, because you're like, oh, it's short weather. Let's put the snowblower away, and
Well, and we articulate within your snow policy, which is on your website for snow removal, that residential enforcement is not your number one priority. There are higher priorities, and so your sidewalks and your trails are completed before any enforcement is done, whether there's a call or not in that instance. So these are not the priorities for removal of snow. The property that the city, that the community owns, trails, sidewalks, parking lots, roads, all have priority over enforcement of residential snow cleaning rules.
That's a good thing to note, because sometimes I know I've received a complaint from a resident who says I've complained about my neighbor's sidewalk. The city hasn't done anything about it. It is because we are prioritizing our public spaces first.
We are not running overtime. We are not doing those things in these enforcement issues unless there's a substantial health and safety hazard.
Each one of these events would have been at least the third day after the precip came down. So our first priority is streets and sidewalks of ours, and our crews make sure we're completed before we look at anything else, even if we get a call the first day.
So what is the city policy as far as when residents have to have their sidewalk cleared?
The ordinance states 24 hours.
So it has to, at least a day has to expire.
Correct.
Before the city would even go out. Even if they got to say it snowed in the morning and somebody complained in the afternoon.
Correct.
They wouldn't actually,
Correct.
enforcement wouldn't even be looked at until the next day at the earliest.
Right, and just to be clear, it's the end of the snowfall. So as an example, it snows Monday, doesn't snow Tuesday, Wednesday, now snows again on Thursday. We probably aren't out there until a week after that initial snowfall, based on the prioritization under the policy that the council sent or put together. In addition to that, it is not our goal to clean people's sidewalks. We want them to clean their own. And one of the questions that previous councils had said is, well, why is it $100? It doesn't cost $100 to take care of that sidewalk. Well, I'm not going to speak to the cost of that, but the previous councils have determined that it's important to set a rate so that it's not attractive for people not to take care of their own sidewalks. And so that's why the rate is set at the rate that it's set at as well. So again, we're happy to revisit this if you want. You do have a resolution in front of you that provides for the assessment that's listed on page 60.
Are there additional questions or discussion? Hearing nothing further, the resolution adopting assessment for unpaid charges for municipal utilities and writing off bad debt utility charges. Oh, am I on the right one?
One before that.
I think I
63.
think I skipped ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm on the wrong page as well.
Page 58.
You know what?
I think the
Here's we have a typo in
There is a
the
typo.
resolution.
Okay, that's
Yep.
what it is. All right. Yep. So we are looking at page 58. The title will be corrected. It is assessment for unpaid utility charges. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify, the
Yeah.
resolution that you just approved has been modified to include unpaid miscellaneous charges. The next one would be utility charges, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you.
Gotcha. So the next one, the memo starts on page 61 of the packet, and Perry is here to talk to us about that.
Again, this is based upon utility charges that have gone into an unpaid status, and also involves writing off smaller amounts under $10, ones where there's a bankruptcy or a fatality that are a deceased utility owner, and the details of that are listed in the exhibit.
Madam Mayor, because Perry is new to us, and this is the first time through this process for him, I do want to articulate that these are for utility bills where the cutoff date is the end of May 2025. So this does not include this summer. I think that's important to understand, and it does not include electricity because under the state statute, you cannot assess electric. The remainder of this, including wastewater, stormwater, water utilities, are allowed for under state law, and this follows your process and the state law under Minnesota Statute 429.
All right, questions for Perry? Ben?
So, real quick question. So we've got the total, the electric total, the assessment amount, and the non-assessed amount, right? So
Correct,
what
yeah.
we're assessing is what's under the assessed column.
Correct.
Anything on that list under $10 will be written off.
Yeah, and this shouldn't.
No,
be-
they're still on there. There's
There are some on there?
Yep, RLJ Holdings for $1.21.
Oh. I apologize for that then.
No,
Yeah,
I
make
just
sure.
wanted to confirm.
Yeah,
Small Land
that is correct.
LLC
Yeah,
for
there are several.
$2.36. Mary J. Larway Living Trust for 53 cents. And Romsden Real Estate LLC. So those
Yeah.
will be written off.
Yes.
Okay, I was just confirming based off of what was in the memo and what was showing up on the assessment.
Yeah, when I do the final roll that I send to the county, I'll pull that off. But I'll do, in the future, I'll make sure that that happens before it comes to hearing and/or the resolution.
No problem.
Well, and it is kind of nice to see the total.
The whole thing. Yeah.
Well, and Madam Mayor, if I can, the reason that we provide
Yeah.
the whole total is because the remainder then, by passing this resolution, is written off as well. So you're really doing a couple of different things potentially here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I can summarize that better in the memo, though. So, yeah. No,
Additional
understood. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, additional questions. Just kind of breezing through this and thinking back to previous years, it seemed to me like there were more rental properties than we've seen in previous years. Is that just?
I wouldn't
My
disagree with
imagination?
you on that. I would agree. I mean, I think it does feel that way or has felt that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. These vacillate quite a little bit as we articulate in the memo. If we have a larger business that this has struggled, this can change the trend line and the total amount quite a little bit. It might also be important to note that as we look at the number of the amount of delinquencies here and the range of what we're assessing in the $12,000 range, that's on a book of business that is approximately 17, 18 million, give or take a little bit. 22, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Actually, I want to add one comment to this. Is something that I'm hearing as I go through this process, because I've talked to a number of landlords who are trying to rethink how they understand this. Because again, as you look at these delinquent bills, they don't necessarily go to the customer; they go to the property owner ultimately. And I think some of them are using this information to maybe figure out how they want to strategize. Hopefully, when we send delinquent notices, they not only go to the utility customer, but they also go to the landlord of the particular property. And I'm hoping that they will pay more attention to that, and we're going to try to do a better and better job of communicating that in a timely manner, so that a landlord, before it gets to this point, can make sure they're communicating with customers, and that they know if somebody's moving out, oh, I should check when they move out. Maybe I should make sure their water or sewer bill is paid, and maybe take that out of a deposit or something like that. So I think through better communication, as I get to know our customers and our process better, we can do a better job with that. And I hope to make this list smaller in the future.
Yes, and I know Brad is we've talked about this in previous assessment and whether or not landlords want to pay those utilities themselves, and there are other strategies as well, Brad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree, yeah. As a former landlord, I would recommend to have the landlords just pick it up and essentially monthly assess it. The thing I was going to note was also looking through this, similar to Ben, is I'm seeing, well, for example, 1, 2, 3, the Nicollet Hotel. They have a number of ones that have a total of, like, the fifth line down has $300.68 total bill. Electric is $368, but you have $300.68 being assessed, which we've been told the electric is non-assessable.
Yeah, there must be an error there.
Okay, so yeah, and I'm just seeing, I'm seeing quite honestly, well, all of them for the Nicollet Hotel are that way, and then I saw that further down as some. So just something corrections
Yeah, I'll
corrections
make sure.
that are going to be
If you
needed.
can, we'll double check that one too. There's certainly with rental properties can be house accounts as well.
Okay, no, I'm just saying you have the total equal to the electric, and you have it as you have it as
I
as
see what you're
accessible.
saying.
So
Be in the non-assessed.
Yeah,
I'm
that could
wondering
be
if that
that
should
could be
be-
a formula error in the spreadsheet.
yeah, that's all. Just to make sure that these things are cleaned up before.
Nope, will do.
Anything?
One of those beauties of legacy spreadsheets.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Always check your formulas.
Anything else? No further discussion. The resolution adopting assessment for unpaid charges for municipal utilities and writing off bad debt utility charges begins on page 63 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thank you. Next up, Area Transportation Partnership Application for South 3rd Street. And Pete is coming up to talk to us about that.
I'm gonna be here for a while. On page 66, we start with a memo that talks about completed an application for Area Transportation Partnership, ATP funding. So in South 3rd Street, we have about a $2.46 million project plan for 28 or 29. Some of this funding here relates to the calendar year 2030. So we would have the opportunity, if the grant is successful, to use it at a variety of different times. We just have to front the money and go forward from that point of view. As you know, this project here coincides with some of the other work that we're doing in town here, so we've kind of got a lot of applications that are going to come to you for approval tonight. This is to get funding on the federal level for some of the roadway improvements. Anything we receive for federal funding on this project would also require a 20% matching fund from the city, which is normal for the federal funding projects that we do get. Currently, we have a transportation alternative grant in the amount of $575,000, and that's for traffic calming, ADA improvements, and alternate methods of transportation that would go along with this corridor. So you can see we're making a pretty good size impact on this. If this grant is successful, we would be looking at trying to cover the other costs through the utilities with water and sewer, the main scope of work along here, and the reason we're taking the street out is because of utility needs underneath that. Going forward, as I also mentioned, we'll have some other applications here, and we are going to continue to work on the ATP and Transportation Alternative Grant side for some additional fundings that we have identified. And what we're hoping is that council will authorize staff to go ahead with an application, and we'll get that submitted in January.
Thank you, Pete. Any questions? Anything to add, Todd?
No.
All right. Hearing nothing, the resolution for support of an area transportation partnership STP small urban roadway funding application for improvements to South Street, 3rd Street from Broadway Avenue to Mulberry Street appears on page 68 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Rampt,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. This is going to be an exciting and impactful project for our downtown, so I hope residents will pay attention as this evolves in the next few years. Moving on to feasibility study for North 4th Street improvements from Chatham to Scarrow.
Right, Madam Mayor and City Council, this is part of the, you've probably seen this identified in the budget process. We are looking at doing a 2-block section of North 4th Street, Chatham to Scarrow. That's been identified as having some of the highest needs in both our street surface and utility improvements along the way. What we're asking you tonight to do is to approve the feasibility, or to approve the staff going out and working with Bolton and Mink to complete a feasibility study to find out if this project is feasible. We are planning to work this project as a 429 project, which means that we'll go through that feasibility and we'll create a list of improvements along with the anticipated costs for our citizens along the route there. As you know, the city is going to be one of the major property owners along that area where the pool is located, which brings up timing for this project. If things would go ahead, you've got a schedule on the back page here, I believe it's page 70, that talks about our timeline. And again, we would be looking at starting this work later in 26 than we usually would do. Usually we try to get these bid out in January, February, but because the pool takes operational time, we would probably be starting this work late in August with the idea that we have a few months to complete this work. That's why we cut it down to just 2 blocks in this calendar year, because we didn't know if we'd have time to do a 3rd block. And so with your permission and approval of the resolution, we'd authorize the feasibility report and some of the engineering practices that would go along with that in the amount of $70,000. And again, if the feasibility comes back that it is not feasible to do, then some of these fees would not be implemented. So that is kind of where we stand. There is a resolution on pages 71 and 72 that declare our intent.
All right, questions for Pete? Hearing no questions, the resolution authorizing Bolton and Mink to prepare a feasibility report and complete engineering for the 2026 North 4th Street Chatham to Scarrow Street project is on pages 71 and 72. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Rampt,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye. The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Next up, intent to participate Trunk Highway 1, is that Trunk Highway? 169 Improvements
Yep.
Project?
Correct.
There's so many abbreviations.
I know.
You question
I'll
yourself.
try to add a couple more during our conversation here. We've been working with MnDOT on the North Minnesota Avenue project here for about a year right now. And our goal with this is that MnDOT likes to look at this and have participations from the communities they work in, because a lot of times there's utilities, sidewalk, curb and gutter, tree improvements, medians, turning lanes, all these things that to MnDOT really don't make a difference. They're trying to get cars from A to B. And by agreeing to the intent to participate is they allow us to work with our engineers and their engineers to come up with a project that really meets the needs of our community. And so by working with MnDOT, we get a little more out of this than just an assessment project and or utilities that are improved, because if we had to pay for that street above where our utilities are, your assessments would be not cover very much of the project. As you can tell, we've got about $2.41 million in improvements that we're looking at. That includes engineering and all of the things that we talked about that I'd mentioned here as far as utilities and lighting and all of the others. And what MnDOT would like us to do is approve the resolution on page 75 that talks about our intent to participate with them on the project. And right now that project is scheduled to go forward in 2028. As you know, it was originally scheduled for 27. They've pushed it to 28 because of some other needs in our region. That still works for us. We do have a couple of sewers that we're keeping an eye on that are in failure mode right now, so we're hoping that we can keep them flowing without additional costs. So it's kind of critical to some of our citizens that this does move forward. But we'll work with them the best we can to make sure this happens. And what we're asking you to do is approve the resolution indicating our willingness or intent to participate.
All right, thanks, Pete. Any questions or discussion?
I think it is worth noting that the reason for this discussion is when we reroute the traffic on Washington and Broadway.
Correct.
The council has presented that we're going to have traffic issues there.
Correct.
And MnDOT has been responsive to our concerns.
Great. They have done additional work such as traffic counts, looking at a variety of different incidents that happen along those routes for detours. So they're not going to put us in a position where we cannot be successful.
So as we discussed in a workshop, one of the concerns, and we discussed this with MnDOT present, was speed along 169, and a big concern was the speed limit being raised. As MnDOT indicated, and I see no speed study is included in here, is if they don't conduct a speed study, the speed limit will not be increased. And is that accurate, that at this point, MnDOT will not be conducting a speed study to?
It is their practice, once a project is completed, to see what the speeds dictate. I don't know what their plans are as far as if they're going to conduct a speed survey or not, but the way our design, what we're working with on a design, we hope to be able to reduce the speed just by doing the traffic calming and the other activities such as narrow lanes along that route. And so speed studies can also be a benefit to us. So if we see people driving over what they feel is going to be the design, every road has a design and a speed that should fit that accommodation. So if they see that traffic, some of that's enforcement on our side. And so we would work with our local police department to make sure that those things happen.
Well, I will say I'm not in favor of participation if the opportunity is there for MnDOT to actually increase the speed, regardless of what intent is. As the MnDOT representative said, if they do a speed study and the 85% threshold says it should go up to 45 or 50 miles an hour, they will raise it to that. I'm not interested in participating in that event, because my concern is that people will see traffic flowing better. You're going to have turn lanes, so there's going to be more accessibility for people to just keep traveling. I think you could see, I think you could see an opportunity for speeds to increase. I would be interested in if we were to do this resolution, I'm wondering how the rest of the council feels on this, is introducing a portion that indicate that the council is not in favor of the speed limit increasing.
Let me clarify that. for this is more of an agreement of intent to participate with the design and the corrections that we've identified. I don't want to sound harsh, but MnDOT doesn't need our permission or our disagreement to do a speed study. They can do what they want to, and we are by far better by trying to participate with them to implement some of the changes that we feel are worthy, such as lower speeds, by working with the design crew.
If I can add, the staff at DOT is well aware of the council's desire not to see speeds increase. That is one of the reasons that they've been collaborative in entertaining medians and other design, I'm trying to think of the right term, design criteria that it's believed will help reduce speed. I think the challenge that we find ourselves in is that it is not likely that DOT will do a study right after this, but they're not going to guarantee that they're never going to do a speed study. So that's
probably
the
the
challenge
best, yeah.
that you have. And as we send this information to them, if the council approves it, we are happy to articulate that in writing. We want to make sure that we're clear as we send this resolution based on the discussions that we had with multiple design team members over the last year, that the council is not interested in seeing an increase in speed in the area in 169, but certainly in the area from Chatham to Union.
I would appreciate that. I mean,
Yep.
I know we had a recent conversation with Nick and Jen. And
Yes.
so I think they heard us loud and clear on that, but
Yep.
it never hurts to say it once again.
Yep. And I can make sure that as we provide this correspondence, that we also ensure that the district engineer, and I'm sure that he is, because he and I have spoke about that, but as we provide the letter, we can make sure that he is on the receiving end of that letter.
Additional, Ben?
From my recollection of the conversation that we had with them doing this project doesn't trigger a speed study unless we request it. However, down the road, 5 years down the road, 8 years, 6.5 months after the project, they could do a speed study. But we would have to request them to do a speed study after this project's complete for them to do a speed study. Is that?
It is not their intent to do a speed study as a part of this or directly after this project, but Pete and I can't guarantee that they won't come back in the future, 10 years from now or whenever.
It was unless we request it. We would have to request a speed study after the project for them to do a speed study.
All right, I'm not seeing any more raised hands. The resolution indicating that the city of St. Peter support the intent to participate in costs for certain improvements on Trunk Highway 169 in conjunction with state project 5209-81 is on page 75 and 76. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
Councilmember Rampt?
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Nay.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, Highway Safety Improvement Program funding for Washington Broadway intersection. Pete.
All right, Highway Safety Improvement Program, HSIP, is a federal aid grant program that we're trying to receive funds for. If you remember a year or so back, we did an ICE study, intersection control evaluation, which is a requirement in order to receive grant funds for a potential project. We completed that, submitted that. Since we've studied the intersection already, it would be our intent, as we mentioned back then, to apply for some federal aid for this. Where this comes and becomes a tricky situation is, of course, this would be on the detour route for the Minnesota Avenue project. And MnDOT has planned for certain improvements at that intersection regardless of whether this roundabout goes in or not. They're planning for it not to go in time or have funding for that project at that time, which would mean additional traffic concerns at that intersection. One of the things that they are very positive about is that if a roundabout funding should come in, it would be very beneficial from MnDOT's point of view to keep traffic moving and more safe at that intersection. So what we would like for the council to do is to authorize us to apply for up to $750,000, which would require roughly a 10% match for funding in that. Expected cost for roundabout now is over $2 million. So you would have some funds coming in from that, and we were still looking for additional funding along that route. And what we're asking is that you allow us to put our name in the hat and see if we can receive some grant funds for that. The resolution is on page 79.
All right, questions for Pete about this one? Brad?
So I'm in favor of this. I think a roundabout in that intersection would be helpful, even, ignoring the 169 project, I think from a long-term planning perspective. I did receive an email asking about, one of the things they had mentioned was enhanced, for example, potential pedestrian crossing lights, opportunity for pedestrian-enabled crossing lights, just because from a visibility perspective, particularly there, visibility for pedestrians might be a little more difficult, and that's a busier intersection. So is that something that that I'm assuming would be entertained in the future as far as when we look at this?
Right. During the detour, that is one of the major considerations there is pedestrian traffic. Again, working through design would solve some of those issues and improve pedestrian safety there.
Great. Thank you.
Pete, is it accurate to say that often as a part of the design process, not just crossing lighting, but regular street lighting is a consideration and part of the review and the design process? So that might make that intersection brighter from many aspects.
Correct. Yeah, lighting is very important there.
And it's also worth noting that there's a visual on page 81 of that intersection. That's not a finalized design. That is just
Conceptual.
That is just let people see and imagine. That is not a final design.
Right.
Dustin.
That's actually where I was going with it. When we originally came up with this design, I expressed concerns about the parking on Washington and on Broadway, and questioned why we couldn't move the roundabout further towards the little triangle of quality
Johnson
Park, yeah.
Park.
Correct,
Johnson Park.
correct. So I would like to see us shift that direction to have a lesser impact on the houses right there and the apartment complex.
That will be part of the design work that gets done. There'll be a review that's done of many different opportunities. I
Right.
can't guarantee that's how it finally ends up, but it is certainly something that we have and will be reviewed as a part of the process.
I would just like it on the record that
Yeah.
I still hold that position.
Yep.
All right. Any further discussion about the resolution on page 79? All right. Hearing none, the resolution of support for 2026 Highway Safety Improvement Program funding for the intersection of Washington Avenue and Broadway is on page 79. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rampt,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Dustin and I already jumped forward and gave the folks at home a little sneak preview of our next discussion, which is the local road improvement program for Washington Broadway intersection. And there is a visual on the second page of that memo.
Right, correct. This is basically the state program, what we just asked you about for the federal aid side. Without repeating myself again, local road improvements, similar to what we've applied for in the past for Sunrise and Broadway, and Magner Parkway, we received grant funds for that and participated and helped us build that project. This would be needed again in order to get this project moving.
All right, any questions or discussion? Hearing none, the resolution approving support for local road improvement program application for Broadway and Washington Avenue is on page 82 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Pete,
Break it all yet? or-
everybody stand up and stretch. Let's talk about a street sweeper purchase.
All right, now some serious business here. 2026 equipment certificate in our budget includes money to trade in one of our 2013 sweepers and purchase a new sweeper. The last couple of years, we've tried to make that extend because we had some other equipment certificate needs within our organization. And so we did some what I would call major repairs to our sweeper to get it to last a couple more years. That has happened. We did get the 2 years out of it we needed, and it still has fairly decent trade-in value. So what we're asking tonight, since this is an equipment certificate purchase, is that you authorize us to order the equipment. It won't be in until after January, and get things moving for next year. This would also allow us to trade in the existing sweeper, receiving a credit of $39,881 for that. And we would come in right on budget at $280,000 for the equipment certificate. As you can tell, especially at certain times of the year, we use both of our sweepers very consistently, and we are making an impact. As Brad had mentioned earlier, on some of our sustainability issues and goals there, not only with leaf collection, but with solids on the streets. We keep pretty clean streets, and it does show an impact because we do sump maintenance on a lot of our major thoroughfares, and we're seeing a volume reduction in that area. So we know that the sweeping program that we have is very effective. I'm asking that you approve the resolution on page 85, which would authorize us to get the ball rolling.
All right, questions for Pete? Hearing none, we're considering a resolution authorizing the purchase of an Elgin Pelican NP Street Sweeper 2026 Equipment Certificate. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Yeah.
Could we have maybe a naming contest for street sweeper, kind of like they do for the snowplows?
Good.
Well, we'll talk to Corey about that. Let's. All right, next up, wastewater treatment facility engineering, Pete.
Mayor and City Council, as you know, we have been working with Bolton and Mink Engineering and Rice Lake Construction, who is our construction manager at risk, to identify needs and solutions for our biosolids processing at the wastewater treatment plant. Your wastewater plant is 21 years old. It has been in service since February of 2004. And it has run its useful life as far as the biosolids are concerned. Some of the things that we still have going on that have been finalized is biosolids. We're looking at changing our operation from a lime pasteurization process to a dryer process. And the benefits behind that is something we talked about at workshop, where we have a reduction in volume and hopefully a lower chemical cost. We'll have a little higher electric utility bill just for the mere fact that we are replacing electricity with the chemicals. So chemicals will be reduced, electricity and heat will be in addition. The selection process is keyed around Class A exceptional quality biosolids. That is where your current biosolids are. There are less restrictions when it comes to disposal. As you know, biosolids disposal has come under scrutiny in the last few years because of PFAS and other inert materials in the biosolid. We feel pretty comfortable with the process we have. We'll be able to meet the needs for the next 20 years. We do not anticipate a PFAS permit requirement for at least 10 years, and then usually what you have after that is about a 5 to 10 year period where they allow you to implement your changes and meet compliance. And so we think we can do a very high-quality job with this existing system that we're proposing, and we will have a reduction and/or less of a disposal requirement. We will have waste load volume reduction. Will be a lot lower than the current volume that we currently dispose of. And then we're going to do some major increases inside our biosolids liquid storage tank. That is before it is dewatered. If you remember back in 2000, well, you guys wouldn't have been there in 2004, but one of the engineering practices that we did was to eliminate one of the walls inside the biosolid storage tank. And what gives us flexibility going forward is that we're able to shut off half the tank and do maintenance on the other half. Now we have to take the whole tank down in order to perform maintenance, and that is all hands on deck type of materials where you can't make a mistake, and it's really caused us some operational issues. And so we're going to put that wall back in and try to help our staff operate that facility a little better. Again, the design of the facility will qualify us for Clean Water Revolving Fund dollars. Grant dollars may be a little tough for us to go after just based on the expected rate increases that we will be discussing within the next year or so. Once we identify that design, we can come up with some numbers that'll talk about rate impacts. And then the CMAR will study what we have going on, work on our behalf to identify a guaranteed maximum price. And what that means is, similar to what we did with City Hall, we will break that down into sections, roughly 15 to 16 sections, and then they will break down each area. Rice Lake will then determine who can perform that work and give us a guaranteed maximum price. And then we can still shop or do whatever we need to from that point of view, and hopefully come up with a project that can reduce the cost. It's very similar to value engineering, something that we've gone through on most of our major projects, where we look at things and try to decide, can we cut this or change this in order for these things to happen. We have to have a plan set ready by March 27th to qualify for some of the funding. And it would be our goal to get Bolton and Mink rolling on that. Right now, they're at about 30% plans, and that was the preliminary engineering that you guys did or authorized, so that we could work with Rice Lake to get things kind of laid out and see how the system would fit together and how we could work with our either silo or bagging operations, and we're getting pretty close on that too. But the schedule that talks about our improvements is on page 87. And a cost breakdown on the engineering is on page 88, and we're anticipating that engineering cost to be about $996,000. And then the resolution authorizing us to proceed is on page 89 and 90.
And it's worth pointing out that your council and your staff are working really hard to seek bonding funding. Who knows what will come of that, but one thing we do know is that they really want you to be pretty shovel ready for your project. They don't want to say, yeah, we'll give you bonding dollars, but this is something we're not even going to be ready to work on for another 3 years. And so we really do have to be prepared and start this
Correct.
work.
We should be we should have a bid package, design package by March, so
Yeah.
we'll be right in that neighborhood. I believe legislature starts in February, so.
Yeah, we'll be working hard. Anything to add, Todd, or
No, ma'am.
council members? Brad?
I think one thing you pointed out, Pete, was that the PFAS, I mean, that is going to be coming down the road, and as I understand it, this is going to help us address. Right now, we don't have any PFAS. Tests show we do not have any PFAS in our.
Not have any PFAS in our source of supply, which is groundwater.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very low risk. We do have treatment at our water treatment facility because of other contaminants in our groundwater, but they are effective on our drinking water. So drinking water is pretty much covered for the next several years. What happens though is if you do have PFAS in your drinking water, it does go to your wastewater stream. And that's where a lot of places are picking this up. Now, we've tested our biosolids and our wastewater and don't have any residual. We don't have any industries that are likely to carry PFAS like some communities have, which causes a major issue. And so we feel pretty comfortable about how our growth has been and who we're treating and having an eye on them.
Thank you.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, the resolution authorizing the design engineering for biosolids improvements from Bolton and Menk appears on pages 89 and 90 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thanks so much, Pete.
See you next week.
Give Ben we'll let Ben have a turn to talk to us about CoNorth site selection and timeline.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to lead this discussion, and certainly more complex questions or other questions. Ben is here to provide additional information as best we can for you. The information on this one starts on page 91 of your packet. Members, you've talked about this for over a year now. Multiple meetings. The information that's included in your packet, I'd love to tell you that there's a lot of new information in here, but there really isn't. This is information that you've seen before. You've had the opportunity to discuss. You've been able to weigh the pros and cons of this. As you know, this is to potentially move forward on a site to work with potential partners CoNorth if you enter into a development agreement on a new type of housing development that's higher density and uses facility-built housing. You've talked about a couple of primary locations, and the staff indicated to you at the last workshop. We believe that there's maybe 3, could be more potential locations. But one of the challenges that we have is trying to ensure that we're putting our energy and resources in an appropriate location. I do want to mention, without talking, and as you know, we've talked for hours on this, so, and you know me well enough, I could talk for hours on this alone, so it's not my goal to do that to you or with you. But I do want to mention that on the bottom of page 93, or towards the bottom of page 93, I think are the 2 most salient questions that are really before the council tonight. And I don't know that there's a right answer. I think this is somewhat subjective and based on your belief on what's going to happen with pros and cons moving forward that range everything from cost to the receipt of grant dollars through Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, to the ability to see financing in place for facility-built housing, to what could happen if we use land for this purchase, to what can we purchase other parcels of land for if the council decides not to use land that you currently utilize. And so those 2 bullet points, I think, articulate those questions, which really get to, is a somewhat better site with higher complexity and extended timeline better than a good site with lower complexity and a clearer timeline? And then, therefore, what do you focus on? The council suggested that it makes sense to be on the record to provide direction to staff as to where you want us to go with this type of development with your potential partners on this. In addition to this, you had a discussion at your workshop that asked for utilization of housing dollars. You have some housing dollars that are set aside that are primarily derived from housing TIF districts that are available to use, driven for workforce and low to moderate income housing. And so we provided that information, and the information, I think, is good information. My hope is that's not necessarily the basis for any decision moving forward, but really how you view the future and what could happen. We're happy to answer questions as best we can, but really the resolution that's in front of you says you're directing staff, based on the staff's recommendation, to focus on a Klein Street location. If not, if you vote in the negative on that resolution, then staff will work towards trying to find and acquire other potential locations that meet the requirements that either you've established or you've established in cooperation with CoNorth, this housing not-for-profit that you've worked with. The resolution is on page 96, and again, other than those 2 questions, I would focus on page 95, which is what happens if you don't act, what happens if you don't approve the resolution, and certainly it's always an option of the council to modify that resolution. There's boatloads of stuff that you could discuss. You've talked about this many, many times, so we're happy to provide whatever we can as you try and make a decision on the resolution that's in front of you.
All right, thanks, Todd and Ben.
I myself will be voting in negative for moving forward with CoNorth and Klein Street. I love the CoNorth project. It's a great idea. The location, I don't think, fits the use of this project, and here's a couple reasons why. Last election, one big push was, what are we going to do to bring businesses in town? If we donate because that's what we're going to do. We're going to donate 10.5 acres for CoNorth in the industrial park, which actually has a value of $46,000 an acre, $1.05 per square foot times 44,000 square feet per acre times 10.5. It's just under $500,000. So the actual cost of land that we would be giving would actually be twice of what it would be if we purchased new land. If we were to utilize housing dollars to purchase different land, we would only use 10.5 acres. We would have more acres to be able to utilize for other housing dollars or other workforce housing or low to moderate income housing, like with Habitat for Humanity and Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership and things like that. If we were to donate 10.5 acres in the industrial park, what would we have left for acreage that's not spoken for? Because I remember 4 years ago it was really empty, and now it's almost full. So this is kind of giving away one of the last large footholds in the industrial park for housing. Like I said, I love the project, but I will be voting in negative for it, and those are the reasons.
All right, thanks. Josh?
I will also be voting negative for this. I really, similar to Ben, appreciate and like the project and think that their goal is certainly fit for somewhere in St. Peter. However, I strongly believe that while we're building affordable housing, we need to build affordable housing as a part of the community and not place affordable housing on the outskirts of town. I also think that when we zone the area for industrial use, it makes far more sense to have industrial uses in there. I've publicly come out against the building of residential housing in the industrial district in general and believe that that area is better suited for business development. But in general, I believe there are other properties in town that are more suited towards CoNorth and their goal that will be more integrated in the community and serve them for a longer and more fruitful purpose.
Brad?
Once again, I'm also in favor of CoNorth in general. Similar to Josh and Ben, I'm not in favor of this location. Ben and Josh spoke very well as to the reasons why, so I won't reiterate that. The one thing I will raise is people ask, well, we've already done residential in our business industrial park up there. The opposition I have to this particular residential, one of the reasons I believe integrating them, but this differs from the other residential up there in the fact that our other residential is directly tied to other residential in the area. Whereas this, there would be 3 different business/industrial facilities in between the next residential development from the city. You can look at the Solis Apartments, which back up to Washington Terrace. The new apartments that are being built up there, they have the state facility followed by the Benedictine facilities. This essentially we're hopscotching and skipping over and just putting this away from the other residential. So that's another factor as to why, although I voted for a residential up there, I don't like this particular location. And I do believe, as Josh said, there are locations that can make them a more integrated part of the city. So that's why I believe this development will be successful, regardless of location. I think it will fill up because there's a desire for this housing. But even with it filling up at the Klein Street location, doesn't mean that was the best location for it. So that's my opinions on it. So.
Carrie?
Yeah, I support the CoNorth project. I support the location on Klein Street. I've talked about this at length, and I don't think I'm going to change any minds here today, but I do want to explain why I want to support the Klein Street location. I think as we look at our comprehensive plan, there's a lot of planning that we're going to do about industrial, business, residential. This isn't the only opportunity here for a business park. And, the business park, there's still room for businesses there. And sometimes what can spur development is having more people in the area, more people that might work at those businesses. And so I do think it's a happy marriage of those two things. When, with my work on RETA, the biggest challenges for businesses really is workforce right now. And then, of course, that relates to housing. So I've talked about this at length. I do support Klein Street, and I will be voting for it.
Justin?
Obviously, I think all of us agree that we're in favor of the project. And even if there is a no vote, it's not no that we want to work with CoNorth. It's just geographically where we want it. I agree that the project is wonderful. I also agree with the people voting no that it is not the most ideal location, but it is land the city owns. I did reach out to City Administrator Profke to question an alternative. Is we did within the last couple of years purchase a large chunk of land from the school district with the direction the school district wanted us to develop housing. They had held on to that piece of property for years thinking it was going to be an additional school, but they took a step back and said, well, wait a minute, if the city can't add housing, we aren't going to need another school. So the statement that that's the only land the city owns it's not accurate. I think we should go back into workshop and we should try looking at all options and make sure that we make the right choice here.
Daryl?
As CoNorth, as a question for Todd actually, has CoNorth indicated what property they desire to develop on?
Yeah, when they were at your goal setting session, I believe it was your last goal setting session, they were very clear that they believed that the location on Klein Street had the best potential for them. They saw it as a positive site, different in some respects than some of the council members had mentioned. They will continue to try and be happy to work with us on any site, but they did prefer the Klein Street site.
Thank you.
And Todd, was that mainly because of timing?
Time-
Because having to acquire land would add 6 to 8 months to the opening of the project.
Certainly timing is an issue. There's not been a projection on 6 to 8 months. If you go on other sites, other than the site that was mentioned in Traverse Green, you still have to provide for acquisition and negotiate purchase and a number of other things. So from a staff perspective, we have not speculated what the timeline is, just longer for an additional site. And they have other resources that are timeline driven as well. So I mean, at least from my perspective, is the biggest challenge that you all face. It becomes increasingly more complex to do a project at another location, especially if it's a location that you still have to acquire, do all the engineering, do all of that work that's necessary. And I think a private developer would tell you that the opportunity to purchase a lot or a 40-acre tract or any acre tract and have it move from purchase to building within 6 to 8 months is, the possibility of that is very low. It's not impossible, but it's very low. Many of the projects you guys have worked on and this one has been on the books for a couple of years potentially already. And we're still at this location, or still at this point in the process as to where are we going. So.
Well, my concern is because we all are supportive of this project, I mean, across the board, I think that there's consensus that we see the need for varied housing options and affordable housing in our community. I think because it isn't perfect, I fear that we are going to lose the opportunity altogether. And so I don't know that I'm going to convince anybody, because we have talked about this a lot, and I did push for us to just vote on it already because we've talked about it so frequently. I think in pursuit of perfect, we might lose something that we have a great opportunity with right here. And so I will vote in favor of it. I also happen to feel like it's a good location. Long-term, Washington will connect out there, and so it feels a little bit in the middle of nowhere right now, but eventually it'll be connected. Some other parcels of land that are for sale, I think are just as on the edge of town as this is, and not as connected in some ways. So I'll vote in favor of it. Brad?
Just a quick question. Referencing Councilmember Sharstrom's comment about the fact of the school property that we acquired, is to, if there is a negative vote on this, is to take that into consideration. Or maybe you could potentially elaborate on, had you considered that up to this point? If so, why not? And if you've determined.
From a staff perspective, we have considered that up to this point. From my view, it would take a change, a policy-driven change on the part of the council in relation to the Traverse Green neighborhood. Let me define that more clearly, if I may. First of all, if everybody can kind of picture Cullen Street and how it divides that property, about 4/5 is east of Cullen Street and about 1/5 is west of Cullen Street. Certainly the area where platting has been discussed and platting has taken place, contemplated for that area east of Cullen Street, has larger lot development focusing on opportunity for cul-de-sac and lots that are generally larger than 10,000 square feet. For those folks that might be listening in that aren't aware, that's a lot where you might typically see a lot cost and assessment in the $80,000 to $90,000 range or more, and that homes that are generally valued, at least in today's market, more than $400,000 are placed. The area west of Cullen Street was really contemplated for a similar lot size development for starter single-family homes that were in that neighborhood of $250,000 to low $300,000, and would maybe more closely replicate what we've seen in successful neighborhoods you've had, like Nicollet Meadows, Washington Terrace, and the first phase of Traverse Green. Could it certainly be put in any of those locations? Yes, you could certainly change direction and do that. My perspective has been, at least based on the work that the council's done to this point, is that that wasn't something that you were necessarily going to entertain now until other opportunities were exhausted, because at least from my perspective, I believe that you felt you had a solid development plan within that Traverse Green neighborhood, really impacting across the marketplace, except for that high-density manufactured home development opportunity, which this is. So I hope that answers, that's where we're at.
Dustin?
Which I will circle back to that. I do wish that an option was presented to the council to explore that. You have a neighborhood, you have a park right there, you have trails right there. Looking at it from a geography perspective, we then would have a neighborhood there that has virtually every level of income housing available to us. My fear is that yes, if we vote no, we could completely miss out at this point in time. That's my concern with a no vote.
That's my concern too. This is affordable housing. This is something that we all care about, and we're so stuck on the location, and we have opportunities to work with our community on making a plan for all of the concerns that were raised. Housing first.
All right, if there's no further discussion, the resolution that we are considering for directing staff to provide development agreement to CoNorth for property on Klein Street is on page 96. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Nay.
Councilmember Weisenfeld.
No.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Nay.
Councilmember DeVos.
Nay.
The resolution does not pass. Moving on, HRA repayment agreement.
Madam Mayor, members, this information starts on page 97. As the members may be aware that, more than a couple of years ago, you were awarded resources both from the federal government and from the state of Minnesota. Those dollars from the state of Minnesota came through deed, and these were for dollars for improvements to the roof and mechanical systems at Parkview Manor. Deed has done a review of all the activities that have gone along as a part of that, and they are requesting that we have in place a repayment agreement between the HRA and the city of St. Peter. Technically, those dollars received by the state, or from the state of Minnesota, were received by the city of St. Peter and not the HRA. So that's why Deed wants to make sure that there's a repayment agreement. Generally speaking, the repayment agreement provides for a couple of things, the primary of which, and the most concerning, or the thing that they want to address primarily as a part of the agreement, is to ensure that this property stays as naturally occurring affordable housing. And so that we don't make an improvement and now all of a sudden someone sells this and it becomes luxury housing and is remodeled for luxury housing, that if they're putting resources in for roofing and mechanical, that it's used for its intended purpose, which again is naturally affordable occurring housing within the community. That's the basis for the agreement that you see. You'll note that this has been signed and approved by the St. Peter Housing and Redevelopment Authority, and the resolution that's on page 100 provides the opportunity for you to direct the city administrator and mayor to also sign that agreement to meet that requirement from Deed.
Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, the resolution entering into a repayment agreement with the St. Peter Housing Redevelopment Authority is on page 100 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp?
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
Mayor Noel?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Last item of new business, MRVT Federal Transportation Administration Drug and Alcohol Policy.
Mayor, members, this is a policy that is exclusively applied, if approved, if the modifications are approved by the City Council, to Minnesota River Valley Transit employees, primarily drivers in this instance. I want to make clear that, again, this is for drivers with Minnesota River Valley Transit, and although similar provisions apply for all of your employees that have CDL license, this one is specifically set up for MRVT. The reason that this comes in front of you after review by MRVT is that while MRVT could take action, they weren't asked to take action because MRVT really doesn't have any employees. The City of St. Peter maintains all of the employees, so any personnel policies that you adopt really do apply, and that this is the proper place for this to occur. There aren't any what I would call significant policy changes to this, and this comes after a review by the Minnesota Office of Transportation, who has purview over reviewing this. And frankly, the federal government and the state of Minnesota provide, at least today, up to 90% of the funds for running your transit system, both here in St. Peter and Le Sueur, which is the joint powers entity. So the recommendation from staff is for you to approve this addendum to your personnel policy, and all these rules again relate to MRVT employees, primarily drivers. Happy to answer specific questions as best I can. These are really drug alcohol testing policies and procedures. Again, happy to answer any questions that you might have. The resolution's included in your packet, I believe, on page 120 or 121.
121.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Dustin?
Reach out to City Administrator Prafke about, specifically on page 107, when you look at THC and marijuana, questioning why essentially it is forbidden entirely from use. And I would like him to provide clarification or the same explanation he gave me earlier for the public.
Yeah, as you know, and as I mentioned earlier, federal transportation dollars are used for this. And although we've had a lot of discussion within the state of Minnesota, and particularly with this council related to cannabis licensing and other issues related to cannabis use and licensing, that is not necessarily the case for the federal government, who's providing the resources for this. They review these documents, and without having the appropriate language and following the appropriate policy, you could be, or MRVT, could be subject to a reduction or loss of all those funds. This is not unusual. These continue to be similarly placed as to rules with CDL drivers. And I'm happy to talk about policies and procedures more on that, but what it comes down to is that they provide a lot of resources, and the rules related to marijuana and other drug use within the federal government has not changed. And so here's where you are. Me asking you to approve a policy so that we can meet the requirements based on the audit that was done by Minnesota Office of Transportation.
Thank you.
Additional questions or discussion? Yes.
This was reviewed at our last transit committee meeting. Brad and I attended and was given the once over by them, so.
Thank you. All right, hearing no further discussion, the resolution providing for modifications to the City of St. Peter Personnel Policy Manual for MRVT assigned employees is on page 121. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. We will move on to reports. I have no reports at this time. Are there any council members who'd like to make a report? Carrie?
I'll just make a quick report on the fall Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities Conference. That's the conference where policy positions are approved by the membership. And this upcoming legislative session is just really going to be about protecting LGA and bonding. It's going to be hard to get much else done. And so as we, locally here think about our legislative priorities, focusing on bonding and LGA is something that we've done in the past and might be worth our time in the future, since that's pretty much, there's, not a lot of policy making will likely go through in the upcoming legislative session, and bonding is so critically important, and we have our own projects to request. So otherwise, it was a lot of learning and great connections. And Councilmember Pettis, do you have anything to add?
Housing. Coalition Greater Minnesota Cities, you should be receiving emails from them usually about once a week, and they're reaching out to council members, city staff also, just to talk about some of the perceived threats to housing. There's been a fairly strong push at the legislature over the past couple of years about undoing some local control, local zoning, parking, densities, things like that. There's a feeling, and it's according to the people who are speaking there, it's not really a red or blue feeling. It comes from different parts of the state. There's too much red tape. If we cut the red tape, we can fix affordable housing. If we don't require this color siding, we can fix affordable housing, things like that. And all of us know it's not that simple. So please fill out the email or the questionnaire that they have sent out, and please be prepared to possibly testify if we need to at the legislature at short notice, due to some of the things that are coming up with housing and some of the things that could be fairly detrimental to some of our efforts within this community as far as providing housing. So.
And one thing to add on that, while we were at the conference, I asked Ben Baker, our community development director, to fill out the study or the survey, and he did. And so the lobbyists through the coalition are going to really use our positive stories, that all the creative things we've done in our community, to really share that communities across the state are not the bad actors. There's very few bad actors, that we're making a lot of moves in a positive direction for housing and being creative, and so
And
yeah.
The other housing piece, the frustration over some of the Minnesota housing, some of the grants that have gone out there that have really been slow walked out. These funds were approved in 23, if I'm not mistaken, and they're now just making some of the grants And some of the choices that were made for some of the projects, like for some of the grants, are real head scratchers, putting housing developments in cities of 600 people. I think the largest one was 6,700 people. That was the largest community that received any of the housing infrastructure grants. It's a pretty small city. And just there's dollars there at the state supposedly waiting to come out and fund some of these programs, but they're not being released. So Todd probably knows a lot more about it than we do, but there's a lot of frustration within that room on, we're supposed to be housing, we're supposed to be dollars available for this, and it's just being slow walked out.
When I signed a letter regarding that to Minnesota Housing as my role as president of the coalition. And so there's, a request to engage with Minnesota Housing about what that criteria is and how it really addresses the workforce housing needs, and just clarification on how those funds were rolled out. So accountability is also a big, important matter too.
Thanks to both of you for attending the conference, and Carrie for serving as president of CGMC. It's really important work. Any other reports, Brad?
Well, I've called out Mankato Ballet before for their performances. So this weekend I'm going to call out our local high school in their production of The Little Mermaid. It was honestly a spectacular production. I saw it yesterday. Of course, hard part about feeling old is remembering when a lot of the main characters were in preschool. But I just a big kudos to the performers as well as the staff who went into it. And if we are privileged to have such a great theater available for these performances, and big congratulations to them. So.
Any other reports from council members? All right, how about our city administrator?
Madam Mayor, I don't have any others other than a request for closed session, or technically multiple closed sessions for union negotiations under Minnesota statute. And so I do not anticipate coming back into open session other than to adjourn. The closed session would be for negotiations related to your utilities group, which is water, wastewater, stormwater, your parks group, your streets or maintenance group, and your police unions.
All right, so we will
Go someplace
go
else.
downstairs and.
Yep.
All right. Are there any questions? The resolution calling for a closed session is on page 122. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Weisenfeld, Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Voss,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved, and we will adjourn to closed session. It is 8:38 p.m.